Welcome to the second lecture of this series, Web Technologies. This lecture is titled HTML Fundamentals 1. In the last lecture, we discussed the World Wide Web, URLs, domains, web evolution, how the web works, and web technologies. And we mentioned that HTML is a language that is used to design the front end of a web application or a website. We mentioned that HTML is the foundation or the skeleton of every web page or every web app that exists in the World Wide Web. So today we'll be looking into HTML. Now, this lecture is going to be a practical course. It's going to be a practical lecture. It's not going to be just theory. And there are tools that are needed to learn this course effectively because it's going to be practical. So what are those tools that we need to learn this course? The tools needed. One, we need a laptop. For us to code HTML, we need a laptop, obviously. Two, we need a text editor or an IDE. IDE means integrated development environment. And we could use any of these: Visual Studio Code, Atom, Notepad++, or Sublime Text. But for this tutorial, for this lecture, I'll be using Visual Studio Code. We also call it VS Code. Number three, we need a browser. Brave, Chrome, or Firefox. Any of these three is okay. But I'll be using Chrome for this tutorial. Now, let's go to the installation of Visual Studio Code. Now, to install Visual Studio Code, you must have been connected to the internet. Make sure your laptop is connected to the internet. All you just need to do is type, you have to download VS Code. Just type VS Code. It's up already. Now, this one that you see here, Visual Studio Code, code editing redefined. This is where you should just click it. Because I'm using Mac, it brought download Mac Universal. But if you are using Windows, it will bring download window. It will bring something like, it will bring, okay, download Windows installer. Then you download it and you install it. The installation is not difficult. You just follow. Once you download it, once you are done downloading it, click on it, then you keep on installing. Just keep on saying yes, 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 and yes. Is that okay? So now after installing it, of course, you should have a browser too. You should have downloaded the browser. I'll be using this Chrome browser. You can use Firefox, as I mentioned earlier, or Brave. Now, let me launch my Visual Studio Code. So you can see this is my Visual Studio Code that I've downloaded. This is how it looks like when you launch it. So now you can, let me expand it so you can see it well. This is how it looks like. Now let's start a project, an HTML project. I prefer to organize my files in a folder. So what I do first is to go to my desktop. Here's my desktop. Here's my desktop. And create a folder. Let's call this folder the title of our lecture. Let's call it HTML Fundamentals. HTML Fundamentals. I love to organize my files inside the folder. So let's go back to our text editor, our Visual Studio. Now I can say new file. I can come here, press new file. Well, I can create here, open a folder. Can I open my folder? Because I'm organizing it in this HTML fundamentals, depending on where you are organizing your files. I open it. This is what comes out now. I've opened the HTML fundamentals folder rather. So now you can now create a new file. You can come here, click create new file, or you come here on this icon, create new file. So let's create a new file. Let's call this file index.html. Index.html. You can call it any name. You can even put your name.html. Now listen, the extension is very important. As you can see, I'm using .html. If you were opening, if it was a docs file, use docx, .docx. But here I'm using .html because HTML is the file extension for every HTML page. HTML or HTM, either of those two will work. .html or .htm. So let's save it as .html. Now I've saved it. Now for every website on planet Earth, the default file that launches is always called the index file. The index file. That's why I called my own index. But actually, you can call it any name you want. I could have called it home or anything. But the default file that launches when you press a URL is always the index file. Now, let's talk about the structure of an HTML page. The structure of an HTML page. The structure starts with a declaration, which is the doc type. What does this thing tell you? It tells you that this HTML file is an HTML5 version. So doc type is just a declaration that tells the browser what type of HTML the file contains. Now, once you see, we have different doc type. We have HTML4, but at this moment, I'm using HTML5. This HTML5 doc type HTML. This means HTML5. It will tell the browser that the content in this file is an HTML5 content. So that's the declaration doc type HTML. After you have done that, you write the root element. There's a root element called HTML. Can you see it now? HTML, and that's the opening tag and the closing tag. HTML opening tag and the closing tag. The closing tag has a forward slash. You can see it at the beginning before it has the HTML. So this is the opening tag and this is the end tag, the closing tag. So after the HTML, inside the HTML we have also the head. The head element. Inside the elements we have what we call the title. Let's put the title as an HTML. Let's call it title HTML fundamentals. So that's the title. That's the HTML, which is the root folder. The root element. Then we have the head. Then inside the head we have the title. Then after the head we have also the body. The body. Now the body contains every element you see on the page. The body contains all those things that we see on the page. The title just contains the head contains the titles, the link to different resources. That's the CSS and JavaScript. To learn much about that. We'll learn more about that in the next subsequent lecture. So this is just the structure of the web page. This is the structure of every web page that you see on the internet. It has a declaration. It has the root folder, the root element, which is the HTML. It has the head. Inside the head, you have title, and this is the body. Now let me load this thing. Let me save it. Ctrl S. Now I've saved it. Let me go to my desktop and load the page. So I will see how it looks like. Now this is here. This is it here. This is the file here. To open it, you can use now say open with Google Chrome. You can use Brave browser. You can see I can use Firefox too. I also have Safari. I can use it too, but I prefer to use Google Chrome. That's my default. So open with Google Chrome. Can you see it now? Nothing is there. Nothing is on the home page. Why? Because there is nothing here. There is nothing inside the body. But if you look at it here, there is a title there, HTML fundamentals. That's what the title is, HTML fundamentals. Let's change the title and see. Let's change the title to HTML tutorial. So you see that it's this one that is controlling that title. Control S. Let's go back. If you look at something, it does not show immediately. It does not reflect the changes immediately. We have to reload it. Now it's reflecting the change. Now we don't want something like, I want something that is very easy. That immediately we update it, we save it, it is actually showing, it's actually reflecting the changes. We use what we call an extension called the live server. So let's install the live server. Let's install the live server here. So we don't need to reload anytime we make changes on our code. So we come here, this place, this particular place, and you click, press live server. Type live server. This particular one. There are different many live server, but make sure you install this particular one by week day. Install this one. I have installed it already. Install it by week day. This will not allow you to keep on refreshing anytime you make changes. It will just update itself by itself. So let me show you how it works now. I've installed it. Make sure you install it by week day. Just type live server. Print it out. Let me now show you something now. For instance, now let's go to our file. This is our index file. Let's make changes now. Let's make a change. Let's make a change. Let's take it back to fundamentals. Let's put something in the body. Let me introduce one tag in this lecture. There's a tag called the paragraph tag. The paragraph tag is called P. P. That's the opening tag and a closing tag. So let's say the boy. Let us copy and put HTML fundamentals there too. Control save. Let's go back to our browser. You see, it does not reflect immediately, so I reload. But when we use this server, live server, what we just need to do is we come here and say open with live server. Open with live server. Open it like this now. Can you see it now? You see some numbers on it. 127.0.0. That means you are using live server. Now let's make another change. You see that we don't need to reload. We don't need to reload it. Let's come here first. Let's reload this one. No, it's not still showing. Let's reload it. It's showing now. This one too is showing. This is the live server. This is the normal browser. So let's go here. Let's come here and make changes now. Let's say just HTML tutorial. Here to HTML tutorial. Control S. Once we save, see this one has reflected already, but this one is yet to reflect, except I click on the reload. So that's the difference between you using the live server and using your normal web browser. So that marks the end of this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we'll talk more about different elements, different tags. We learn so much about different tags, different HTML tags. So see you in the next lecture. Make sure you install your browsers. Make sure you install the Visual Studio Code. See you in the next lecture.